Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Monday, the 20th of October. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined by the full squad this morning. First of all, Johnny McFarlane, after doing the night shift last night with Chris Jack. He's back on this morning. How goes it, Johnny?
Yeah, good, Derek. Back on again, within 12 hours? Not even that, probably. So I'll try and be as fresh and as interesting as I can be, but there's obviously so much to talk about regarding this, and I'm sure we'll cover fresh ground.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I got in late last night, and I watched you and Chris's show in my bed. But it was a good watch, I've got to say. So
what was the romantic?
Yeah, the missus was fast asleep the time I got in last night. So put the earpods in, and I was catching up. Blair also joins us. How goes it, Blair?
There's a horrifying image there, Derek, listening to Johnny as you're drifting off to sleep. But alas, good. I'm well, as good as anyone can be following Rangers these days. I see a few comments welcoming you back to the pod after your week's holiday, and thankfully, not too much has happened since you've been away. So it's been relatively quiet, really.
Yeah, but I should know by now that October international break is when Rangers look for their annual new manager. So I'll bear that in mind for next year. But it's been nothing short of disastrous, this managerial search. We'll get stuck right into it shortly before we mention the great guys at Willows Fencing, the proud partners of the Rangers Review, the Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust. 20 years of experience in the fencing game. If you're looking for a new fence, these are the guys to call, or head on over to their website, which is willows-fencing.com. They offer free consultations, and you get 10% off if you use the code Rangers Review. Right, let's dive right in, shall we? Chris has got a piece on the website from last night. Of course, he was on with you, Johnny, as well. He says that Danny Rohl is back in contention to become Rangers head coach, which is just days after withdrawing from the process. We had the story on Thursday evening that the German had informed the club he no longer wished to be considered for the position. However, the dramatic collapse of Kevin Muscat's, what would have been a return to Ibrox, has now changed the landscape again, and Rohl is said to be a name under consideration by the Rangers board. Just on the Muscat situation, I know that you and Chris covered it in great detail yesterday. I want to go over old ground, but I've been off for a week, coming back. Like I say, I was catching up over the weekend. I certainly looked as though this was done and dusted. However, the fact that it's fallen away a la Steven Gerrard earlier on in the week, well, last week as well, Johnny, tells me that there is something seriously wrong at this football club, that managers are shying away from taking over a club that we all thought was a huge draw for many managers to come and manage a team like Rangers Football Club. But they're declining to come in, which tells me that they are being put off by the football department, the way the club is being run at this moment in time, which has to be alarming for everyone associated with Rangers, fans, players, everyone, with regards to the football club. Now, on Muscat, there was a few bits and pieces coming out as to why it would have collapsed at this late hour. Rangers said nothing. It's nothing to do with, if you'd seen stories about how much say would have with regards to transfer dealings. News coming out from the Muscat camp saying that he wanted more say in how players that would be coming into the club. We're at a stage now where, as we touched on there, looking at Danny Rohl, a guy that pulled himself out of the race, coming back into it. What is going on, Johnny?
Yeah, I think you've got a bit of a he said, she said situation, and it's up to people to make up their own minds as to what happened. Certainly the club saying that stories that Kevin Muscat is out of the running because he didn't agree with the recruitment strategy of the club are untrue. And yet it seems from Muscat's camp, there is an alternative story that's coming out. It's a very, very difficult one, Derek, in terms of trying to provide context or detail or explanation at the moment. That's going to all come in the coming days. We've just got to kind of react. And it's impossible to give any other reaction than one of almost utter gall at what's happening. Utter surprise, shock, and ultimately serious criticism of the owners and the boards over what is happening, because this is now the second manager that they've got very, very far down the road with, only for the deal to collapse. Those are the facts. Now, they may well have been keeping other irons in the fire. That's obviously what you would expect in case these sort of scenarios unfold. But whoever comes in is now going to be well aware they were at least third choice, potentially even longer than that, for this job. And what you have now is you've got a fan base that was entirely united at the point of this takeover going through. The excitement was palpable. The club was in a right good place. And now you're on the verge of a crisis like nothing that we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years. Now the level of connection between the club and the fans is at breaking point. It's lower than it's been. And that's truly remarkable. And that just doesn't happen in a vacuum. That happens on the back of some truly outrageously bad decision-making on and off the pitch. And unfortunately, the Rangers hierarchy, those who are charged with looking after this institution day after day, and by that I mean from the football department, Kevin Thelwell, and in terms of running the club, Patrick Stewart, the invisible Patrick Stewart, who has basically done virtually no media since arriving at the club almost a year ago, who we're told does good things in the background. The club don't speak about them, don't tell anyone about them. So, how can you make up your mind that anything else but a calamity is going on under his watch when you have situations like this one that is unfolded, the one with Steven Gerrard. It's a very bad situation. I think we saw those in the director's box were barracked to Ibrox during the 2-2 draw with Dundee United at the weekend. I suspect that sort of situation will be focusing minds somewhat on what needs to be done, and perhaps it was that kind of scenario and the potential for further drift without a manager in place that was also a major factor in them almost doing a vote fast and saying, no, we need to get someone in who's going to be able to come in right now. Personally, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think Kevin Muscat was worth waiting for. He was a guy that it was worth putting up with that to a point. I think the season's already over. I said it before yesterday's draw, and I say it again. Doesn't matter how bad Celtic are. Hearts are now 13 points clear of Rangers. Even coming second will be an amazing achievement right now.
When you say the season's over, was over in terms of a title race for quite some time. But season, we're looking at it now and in a race for third, probably.
Oh, absolutely. The Hearts are 13 points clear.
Yeah, forget it.
So not only do Rangers have to win, which at the moment you look at that squad and you say, where are these wins coming from? But Hearts have to lose, and they have to lose fairly consistently for Rangers to make that up. So there's two elements to it. Of course, the cups are still there. Huge game against Celtic, and that winning that one would certainly go a long way to kind of helping. But I think the Europa League as well. You've lost the first 2 games out of 8. I think you're in a very difficult position there. So listen, my feeling is that Kevin Muscat would have been the right man to come in, understands the club, knows what it's all about, very attacking, forward-thinking style of football. I think would have been good to play against the teams that Rangers have struggled against sitting in the low block. And I thought it would be a very good appointment. But listen, it's not happening. So we have to move on from that. And listen, again, the attention moves to Danny Rohl, who's come back into contention. Chris wrote about it last night. And, I've said before, I don't think Danny Rohl will be a great fit for what Rangers need. But, if he does get the job, then everyone will give him the opportunity to show what he can do. My concern is he's not a coach that's going to link the fans and the club back together unless he goes on an incredible winning run. And you have to say, well, you have to be one hell of a coach at 36-year-old with this squad to do that.
Yeah, and recruitment's an issue for me. It doesn't matter who comes in. Given that the disastrous summer recruitment, if Kevin Thelwell is in charge of bringing players in, then I worry for January and beyond, because it's clear he doesn't have an eye for what is required at Rangers at this point in time. So it doesn't necessarily matter, I think, for me, who you bring in. I think you need to do serious surgery in January anyway. So yeah, that is a big issue for me at this point in time. I think it's bigger than just bringing in a new manager. Blair, you were at Ibrox on Saturday. As Jonny quite rightly said, both Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell in the firing line, seen banners, we've seen supporters venting their anger at the pair of them. What did you make of, scenes off the park, I guess, on it? It was much improved Rangers' first half performance, and then they tailed off in the second, and perhaps fortunate to come away with a point in the end. But your overall reflections on a crazy 48 hours or so?
I've seen it described as an omni-shambles at Rangers, which I think quite rightly puts up what the last 48 hours have been like. I, like many others, turned up at Ibrox on Saturday afternoon watching that game, and then left fully in the knowledge, or fully in the belief, that Kevin Muscat would be the next Rangers manager. I went out, I spoke to fans before the game, interviewed fans, asking them their thoughts on Kevin Muscat. Everybody was relatively positive. Everybody thought this guy's the right man. There was obviously some concerns about the wait time, but I think generally the support were in the mood of, okay, this guy does seem to be like the kind of manager Rangers should be going after, and the kind of manager who can lift Rangers' season at this point. And yesterday, sitting enjoying my Sunday, as I think we all were, and then we start getting whispers in the afternoon that maybe this has hit some sort of late snag. And I think the general pervading feeling from everyone was, oh, not again, not again. And I think we all didn't quite go all in on saying he's going to be the next manager, because you never know. You've seen how the Gerrard situation unfolded, and until you see that picture of him with the scarf above his head on the marble staircase, you can never be 100% sure these things are going to happen. And going back to that earlier point about the atmosphere on Saturday, it was a better first half from Rangers. There were points during that first half where Ibrox felt like the old Ibrox again, when Rangers were attacking. They were playing that free-flowing football, and they should have been 3 or 4-0 up against Dundee United, but of course, it always comes to pass. They pack the tools away at half time, and then between minutes 45 and 80, there's absolutely nothing to show for it. And when you come up against a team like Dundee United, a team of men, a team of experienced SPFL campaigners led by Jim Goodwin, guys who know how to win in this division, and they've signed a lot of big guys, continental guys who came in, and they really put Rangers to the sword in that second half. And Rangers didn't look as though they could handle it. I don't know if that's a mentality thing. I don't know where that comes from. I don't think anybody can give you a solid answer about that. But they just looked lost for the best part of 30, 40 minutes in that game, and quite fortunate to sneak a draw at the end. And then as you're coming out of the stadium, you start seeing those videos circulating of the fans having a go at Kevin Thelwell, having a go at Patrick Stewart. And I think it really comes back to this point that I spoke about a few weeks ago, that the board have completely lost the trust of the fans. The fans do not believe in this board anymore. They don't trust them to make the right decision. And now, we've been fed this line the whole way along this managerial search of Rangers are looking at multiple candidates. That's what Rangers always say. We're always looking at multiple candidates. But the optics of this managerial search are so bad that you cannot come out at the end and say, well, we were always interviewing multiple people, because the trust is gone and people are just not going to buy it. The fans are just not going to accept the fact that this has been a protracted search and Rangers have ended up with the best man, because Rangers have completely let the optics of this search run away from them, and now they cannot claw it back.
Yeah, the issue on sort of falling away in the second half, not enough leaders in that dressing room. I think it's clear as day. They've filled it with mediocre players, young boys as well, that don't have the minerals to play for Rangers. And again, that is on Kevin Thelwell and the recruitment, which has been an absolute bomb scare in the summer. And I have, like you say, I don't think the fans have much trust in him and, his son and the men that he's brought in to assist him in recruitment to go and correct those wrongs. That's, I think the issue runs deeper than just a manager, John. You mentioned Patrick Stewart as well. Very unconvincing since he came in. I think Rangers seriously need to look at these guys and whether they are the right men to be in the positions that they hold at this point in time. Again, I think whoever you bring in as a manager, if they don't have a big say in recruitment and if they don't have an eye for a player that is required at Rangers, this could be a good old, a long old season and then some, because the evidence suggests that, we're not going to be bringing in a player that is an improvement, an upgrade on what we've seen so far here.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, recruitment is absolutely key to any football club, any football operation, and the recruitment has not been good enough by a long shot. They've not gone and brought in hardened warriors who can deal with this league. Let's be absolutely honest. Rangers did the hard stuff last season under Philip Clement. They'd got it right. Even under Barry Ferguson, they got it right. They were able to win big European games and they were able to beat Celtic overall over the amount of games they played. They were the better side against Celtic. So that's the hard part. That's what's difficult in Scottish football. So what do you need to do on the day-to-day to get past the St Mirrens and the Motherwells and whoever you play in Scottish football when they sit in deep? Well, you need to get, number one, players who are capable of breaking down deep defences. And number two, you need to get players who know how to deal with the league, who know how to deal with the dodgy pitches in December, January and February, who know how to deal with the lenience of the referees when they're letting go tackles that should be booked or would be booked in other leagues and sending offs. You need players who have the mental strength to get through to the end of games and get last-minute winners. And they need the fitness for that. You need guys who understand the club and know what it means and know why they need to get these wins, because what happens if they don't? And that was what was needed. People in the comments saying Ryan Jack, absolutely spot on. People like that. People that Rangers have always had a core of guys who can deal with the league. And the good managers that Rangers have had over the years, they've always picked up the best players in the league. This is completely gone from Rangers. And I've talked about this so many times. This idea that you not only strengthen your squad, you weaken your opponent's squad as well. But that's been lost. And there's been this sense of almost snobbery about getting the best Scottish players in. I don't know why it's happened, Derek. It's certainly there. I think when you talk about Scottish players amongst the support, sometimes there's some people who say, no, he's not good enough. I remember this for under Lewis Ferguson. When Lewis Ferguson was being linked, he was available. People said, Lewis Ferguson's not good enough. He absolutely was. Of course he was. Of course he was. And listen, Rangers had a terrific midfield at that point. But the point is, you don't have to buy someone and then play them immediately 55 games. Remember what happened with Stephen Naismith when he was brought in? Now, I know, let's not get into the whole Stephen Naismith stuff towards the end. But Stephen Naismith was brought in as a talented young player for Kilmarnock. Didn't play a lot under Walter Smith in the first maybe season and a half. He was used sparingly. But over time, he was bled into the team and became a major player for Rangers before he left. So the opportunities that have been missed are startling. The amount of Scotland internationals that were available on free transfers in the summer, that's not going to happen again. A lot of these players were missed out on. And I think you've got what I would describe in this squad as a squad full of interesting players on the margins. But where's the core? Where's the core that's dragging you through? It's not there. Butland's there, Suter's there, Tavernier's there, Raskin's there, and Miovski's there, right? Now, on paper, that looks like an okay spine. But while Butland's been excellent this season, there's no one that can deny Butland's got a mistake in him. He definitely does. I think he was a little bit slow to get down to that shot in the first goal from Dundee United, and no chance for the second. I know it's going through a a host of bodies. But Butland, listen, I don't want to criticise Butland because he's been the one player this season that has really stood tall. But has a mistake in him, and certainly has times where he can, put you in trouble. Tavernier's 34 on the 31st of October. So in 2 weeks' time, he's 34. We can't keep on expecting Tavernier to bail out Rangers, as he is still doing to this day. Suter, another guy, I thought his interview, I have to say, I'll be honest, I did not like his interview on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
I thought it was clear he didn't want to be there. He wasn't standing tall, facing up to the questions. I didn't think it showed a lot of leadership, I have to say, for a vice captain of Rangers. I thought the body language was poor. And if that's a wee insight into the way the dressing room is operating at the moment, hardly surprising that Rangers have only won one game in the league so far. So I don't think John Suter is a guy that you can hang your hat on as a regular starter for Rangers week in, week out in a title-winning team. No chance. Maybe a fourth choice, but certainly not the guy you hang your hat on. Raskin, for me, Derek, a really good player, tactically indisciplined. I can see why Barry Ferguson was saying to him, we prefer you as an 8 than as a 6. I think he's maybe trying to do too much because of the lack of quality around him. I don't think he's a finished article either. Yes, he's doing really well for Belgium. Yes, he's a very good player. And he's the one player on that team you would say he is a good player. But I don't think he's perfect by any means. And Miovski, I mean, you had very, very high hopes for Miovski. I still think he'll come good. I think if you get a manager that creates chances, Miovski will take them. But he has a habit of disappearing in games. And this is something that Rangers are going to have to really, really work on to bring the central striker, no matter who it is, into play. Because Danilo's disappeared this season, Chermiti disappeared this season, and Miovski's disappeared. Are they all bad, or is it because there's a dysfunction there in terms of creating opportunities for the striker? So I think if you look at the team like that and you look at the squad, you have to say that spine is not good enough, and there's not enough hardened warriors in there. Rangers need hardened warriors. I don't think they're going to sort it out in January. It's going to take more than one transfer window. So I just think people need to be realistic about what we're going to be looking at for this season when it comes to Rangers, and that is going to be, I think, a real struggle.
Yeah, just on the players, Blair, Jack Butland, of course, speaking after the game on Saturday was the embargo press conference. Interesting stuff from what he said. He said mentality is obviously a word that's been used but a lot by different people. You can use it for whatever you like, but sometimes you either have it or you don't. What this club needs is a group, a squad, and a togetherness that lives and breathes what this club's about, and it's not getting that. It's not being shown enough. I have to be careful how I say things, but that's the truth and reality of it. That's what the fans are seeing. It has to happen the rest of the week. It can't be turned on for a match day. It can't be done occasionally in training. It's a mentality of winning and desire. It doesn't have to be pretty at times. That should have been 1-0 on Saturday, worst case scenario. If it gets scrappy, you put bodies on the line. So what? You come away with 3 points, but at the minute, we're not showing what we have enough of that. That's ultimately what this club needs first and foremost. Not messing about there, Jack Butland, Blair. And that, again, that tells me, I think James Tavernier sort of alluded to it in a post-match press conference. Was it after Hearts, perhaps? I can't quite remember. It's a team of guys in there that have no idea what football club they're playing for, what the demands and standards that are expected of them. And that is worrying, I've got to say.
Yeah, that really striking line that he came out with on Saturday afternoon where he said he'd love to know what goes through half the lads' heads sometimes. And it was quite astonishing to hear a player say that about his own teammates. And it just really, it highlights how rudderless this Rangers team are just now. They have no cohesion, no direction, and there's absolutely no one taking the reins and really someone that everyone can get behind. Because, I mean, make no doubt about it, on the park, this Rangers team have been abhorrent this season. They've been terrible. You're looking at, where are we now, the 20th of October, and the only league win with respect to them is a last-minute winning against Livingston. That is horrendous form for any Rangers team. And being unable to put these 2 wins back to back, just absolutely no consistency in the side is shocking. And I think this is why you needed to appoint a manager who would come in with this gravitas, who would instantly calm everybody down and make everything seem okay. I think if we do go down the Danny Rohl route, let's say, Danny Rohl strikes me as a very competent, very interesting coach, but I don't know that that's what Rangers need right now. I think Rangers need someone to come in and be in control. And if they don't want to give that control to the manager, then they have to have a CEO or a director of football that's going to come out and take that control. And the silence from Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell is damning, because there's absolutely no one that's standing up and making themselves heard at Rangers. There's no one standing up to be counted. There's no one. This is why, to digress a little, this is why there's so much anger from the fans spread out all over the place, because no one is coming out as a figurehead, as the lightning rod, to take on this and to answer the fans' concerns, to answer the questions, and to really give an insight into what direction the club is going in. I think that this week, manager or not, it's an absolute must that the Rangers fans hear from either Patrick Stewart, Kevin Thelwell, or Andrew Kavanagh. I think there has to be some sort of address from the people at the top of the club towards the fans, because it really is building a toxicity is building in the stadium at the minute that is completely unsustainable, and it's reaching tipping point. So I definitely think there has to be some sort of dialogue opened up, because, as I said before, the narrative is running away with Rangers, and they're finding it very hard to claw it back. As far as on the park goes, I think we've seen signs on Saturday that there are talented players there. Tello Asgard certainly looked like he has ability. It isn't being utilised in a team that these players are comfortable in. You see these guys who they're too scared to express themselves because there's no one leading the ship. They don't know who should take responsibility. They don't know how to deal with it when things start to slightly go against them. And it just looks like when it's going well, it almost gets over the line, and then as soon as anything bad happens, everybody reverts to type and they go into their shell, and no one is willing to be brave on the ball. No one's willing to take that chance, take the ball when things are difficult, and actually make something happen. And guys like Yusuf Chermiti, who was damned from day one by his price tag, he could have came in and scored a hat-trick on his debut, and still fans would be wanting more from him. And the fact that he's not shown anything yet is just indicative of this recruitment so far this season. That, again, it goes back to this idea of trust. The fans are looking at this board spending millions of pounds by Rangers standards, maybe not by Kevin Thelwell's previous standards at Everton or in the Premier League, but by Rangers standards. They're spending a lot of money on guys who the Rangers fans quite simply don't think are worth it, and they want to know why.
Yep, Thelwell in particular, I mean, he's been given carte blanche to bring in who he wants, and for me, he squandered millions of pounds in the summer. Emmanuel Fernandez can't get a look in. That just looks bonkers, that signing. Chermiti, that is an obvious loan with an option to buy. Why Rangers have shelled out an initial £8 million for him defies belief, and it needs serious explaining. The left-back situation really angers me as well. I've came on numerous shows and spoke about that. The failure to address that in the summer is an utter disgrace, in my opinion. But it's where we are on that. I agree with you, Blair. I think it's high time that we heard from these guys. There's no doubt about it. But big news at the moment. Danny Rohl said to be leading the way. Kevin and many other Rangers fans I speak to share this view. He says he's past caring who they bring in. That's the thing, Johnny, isn't it? I mean, these guys have come in the summer. We're all thinking, it's a new dawn. You're quite right in saying sort of got the important factors addressed last season. And then you're thinking, okay, these guys know what they're doing. Rangers will start acting like a proper football club again, and we might see a title race. I very much expected Rangers to be in a title race this season, but it's gone so badly wrong that the fans are now deciding not to even go to games, talk about protests, and a real apathy is set in, which is just the worst case scenario, the nightmare scenario, you could say, for these new owners that came in. I could not have envisaged this, but it really is a bad state of affairs. And at this moment in time, it looks like it doesn't look like dissipating anytime soon.
Yeah, well, first thing, Derek, I just want to say there's 3,700 people watching at the moment. We've only got 59 likes, so do us a favour, guys. Please hit that like button. Get us up above the 100 at least, because that helps us get the video out to as many people as possible. So hit that like button and help the Rangers review. But I mean, to reply to your question, mate, I think the board are in a massive pickle. The owners are in a massive pickle because if they don't act quite soon, if they don't change the way that this club is being run, if they don't start to establish some sense of trust, I think this could be almost terminal for them.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, this was supposed to be a long-term change, efficiency, competency, ruthless management of the team, and I don't feel like we've seen any of that so far. I don't feel like that it's clicked in any way. I know that Kavanagh and Murat said, you know, you won't be hearing from us. We're going to take a kind of low profile. And certainly spoke to people who said the same thing, that they're not wanting to be a David Murray style ownership group that's weighing in all the time. But Rangers requires someone to lead from the front of the club. I mean, this was, to be honest, this has been a problem going back some time, where it kind of falls on the manager and the manager only. I mean, David Murray has his detractors, understandably so. I'm one of them. But one thing he did is he didn't allow his manager to sort of die on the vine. He got out and said, you know, as a club, we're going to do this. This is how we're going to react. This is how we're going to deal with things going forwards. And he was a leader from the front, certainly in the first part of his ownership. And I just think this sort of sense of, well, we don't want to add to the noise. I think you're just abdicating control of any of the narrative completely. And people inside the club will say, oh, you know, that's not fair on Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart's an excellent CEO. He does loads behind the scenes that no one sees. The fans don't see any of that. Well, yeah, we don't know about that. You're not telling that story. So how can we possibly give a balanced view or a balanced account of what's happening at the club? Because you don't speak about it. You don't lead the narrative. You don't explain it. So it's pointless people making that kind of that defense. And you know, there's alternative narratives out there as well. Let me tell you, lots of them, lots and lots and lots of people giving the alternative view. So I think Rangers are in real danger here. It's a very, very difficult point. Now, the number one thing, Derek, at this club is the Walter Smith thing. Always win. Just win. If Danny Rohl or whoever comes in, is appointed Rangers manager tomorrow or the next day, and starts to win and continues to win, this will dissipate like snow off a dike.
Yeah.
But that's a huge ask, and I can't stress this enough. I'm not saying this to be controversial. Look at this squad. Look at the challenges ahead.
But do you trust the football department to get it right? I don't.
Well, based on the evidence, of course you can't say yes, but I think they're trying to build the football department as they go along. And, you know, I don't think Rangers could possibly get another manager that would perform as badly as Russell Martin. Look, you saw Stephen Smith come in. Now, Stephen Smith is a really smart guy, understands the club completely. Very good temperament, right? Now, I would say Stephen Smith looked, in his short spell in charge, 5 times the manager of Rangers than Russell Martin did. Genuinely. So if you're talking about the style of play in that first half, if you're talking about the way he handled himself in pressers, understanding the nuances of this club and how you say things and where you add to noise and where you don't add to noise, Stephen Smith knew all that stuff. Russell Martin, completely and utterly clueless.
Yeah.
So if you take that into account, what happens if you put in a guy that's got serious experience at the top level at different clubs, won titles in there? I think you're going to see a big difference.
Well, they're shying away from the job, aren't they?
So that's the one thing I would say. My assessment, as always, Derek, I'm basing it on the evidence, and the evidence can change. It might be you put a very good coach in there and suddenly we're saying, actually, the recruitment's not as bad as we thought, right? Because, you know, if you look at that first half, 24 shots on goal, with Stevie Smith in charge, get a new manager in who gives them an uncomplicated style of play, delivers it properly, you might see this being going to be a turnaround. Now, I think that's going to be unlikely, but it's possible. And it's only when we get a new manager in at Rangers that we'll really be able to judge this recruitment properly.
Yeah.
But I would say, obviously, it goes without saying, I'm trying to be nuanced here, it goes without saying that what we've seen so far doesn't suggest that. Doesn't suggest that's going to happen. You talk about Tello Asgard, sorry to go off on one here, but you talk about Tello Asgard, right? I agree Tello Asgard's got talent. There's no doubt about it. Look at that goal. What a finish. Great run. Driving. Great to see him in the middle of the pitch and not stuck out wide. But I also think he's got that thing about him that a lot of creative players have where he drifts in and out of games.
Lazy.
I wouldn't say lazy, Derek. I just think he's got that habit of maybe he's a confidence player when things are going well. It suddenly all clicks into gear and then someone doesn't go right or he gets kicked. I'm not sure. But I do think for a guy of his qualities, he tends to drift in and out of games. And I'm not quite convinced that... to me, he's a player that you bring in like the cherry on top. Like, it reminds me a little bit of Joe Aribo in some ways. You know, like a guy... I think Joe Aribo was a good player for Rangers, right? Played multiple positions. I always felt he could be a bit flaky. You know, one week he could be a 9 out of 10. The next week he's a 6 out of 10. You know, he's that kind of guy. And I think Asgard might be the same. I don't think he's the man you can pin your hat on to take Rangers to a title, that's for sure.
Simon says a Norwegian can't. Well, incidentally, it shouldn't have been Stevie Smith speaking to the press after the game at the weekend. Kevin Thelwell should have been put up just to explain what this situation is. I think it's a bit unfair given he was given the call just to take the team. He shouldn't have to explain what went on. But
I think it would do Kevin Thelwell a power of good to actually just put himself in front of the media and be properly questioned.
Yeah,
I really do. And I think that's part of the problem.
A proper sit down with the media, not a caveat this by saying not a Rangers TV interview, not something where he's seen all the questions pre-prepared, not a statement. It has to be open court in front of the press to take and field questions. I think that's the only thing the fans want at this stage.
Yeah, I totally agree. Right, I'm conscious of the time, gents, so we'll wrap up there for now. Big thank you, incidentally, to William, who kindly donated to the channel. Says, no matters who we get in, we are locked into this squad. He says that with no leaders until the next window. Right, a big week for Rangers, of course. There is a small matter of a European game on the horizon on Thursday as well. Will that new manager be in place before then? Who knows? Make sure you're subscribed to all the social media accounts, to the YouTube channel, and also to the website as well. Remember, folks, it's just £1 for 6 months if you subscribe to the website at the moment. And make sure you download the app as well. That is the best way to consume all your Rangers Review content, available for Apple and Android users. The links are on the description below this video. Right, big thank you to Blair and to Jonny as ever. And thank you to you all for tuning in to the show. Very much appreciated. Those of you that are Rangers Review Extra members, incidentally, will record our Q&A later this afternoon. I'm expecting a bumper show. So I'll pop out the request over in the community page a little later on. Get your questions in, folks, and we'll get to it around about 1 o'clock usual time for that. Right, if I don't speak to you, enjoy your Monday, whatever you are doing, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.